Kenna Bridge of Spirits is the latest big release on GeForce NOW, and I'm here to tell you whether or not it's worth picking up. The title itself is an action-adventure video game developed and published by Ember Lab. Kenna is their first full release, and I have to say I'm really astounded by what they accomplished here. By no means is the game perfect, but considering this is their first entry into the video game industry, Ember Lab will certainly be a studio to keep an eye out for. To start breaking down whether or not you should pick this one up, let's begin by talking about the gameplay. Kenna Bridge of Spirits plays like a traditional action-adventure platformer that does take some inspiration from the Souls series, but by no means does that make the game extremely difficult unless you decide to up the difficulty yourself. It's an extremely approachable game that is best compared to the PS2 era of platformers. That's a comparison you may be hearing a lot going around, and after playing it, I can totally see why. And that's both a good and a bad thing, because it has all the beautiful simplicity of that era, but along with all the jank. And by that, I mean you're going to encounter a lot of areas that seem like they're explorable when they're not and are blocked by invisible walls, or you're going to see platforms you feel like you can land or jump on that you just simply can't. This isn't a deal breaker by any means, and in the grand scheme of things, the overall level design is fairly well laid out. And if I had to describe the traversal to you, it's very similar to the Uncharted series, except you have a double jump and no grappling hook. I make this comparison because anytime you're climbing something in Kenna, it uses pretty much identical control schemes. You'll be moving around, you get to the edge, point where you want to jump, and you jump across. It feels extremely similar to that franchise. And while everything you can climb isn't highlighted in yellow, it is pointed across very easily by this sort of white chalk on the edge. But now let's talk a bit about the combat. And this is where the Souls inspiration kicks in. In terms of options, you have a light, heavy attack, a heavy charged attack, and a dodge roll. As you progress, you'll unlock more tools for combat, such as a bow and arrow, as well as bombs that you can shoot and explode. And then you have access to the Rot, which are those little black adorable creatures that follow you around with those big beady eyes. They will help you in combat and can learn new moves to actually assist you and make the fight easier. In terms of defense, you have your trusty dodge roll and a shield which, if you use at the right time, can parry an attack and leave the enemy vulnerable. The combat in itself is really fun in my opinion. I enjoy it, but I will admit that it does feel a little bit stiff. It's also worth pointing out that there is a lock-on mechanic if you decide to play that way. The last aspect of gameplay I just want to touch on quickly is the puzzle mechanics, because there are quite a few puzzles in the game. They're all fairly straightforward and nothing too complicated, although some of them can be a bit annoying. It's all pretty standard stuff, nothing you haven't seen elsewhere, so I can't say it's great, but it's not bad either. Next, let's talk about the visuals and audio. And man, those visuals are certainly what carry this game a long way. The game is absolutely beautiful. The environments, character design, all of it seems so Pixar-esque in many moments. It's still incredible to me that a studio could deliver such a product as their first entry, because the game is certainly one of the better looking games released this year. The world is absolutely gorgeous, and the way that they play with the sense of scale is very, very well done. All the foliage, trees, grass just make the world feel so alive. And when you're in an area where it's all dead, you do feel that sense of dread and despair. But the transition of turning a dead piece of land into something beautiful and lush just never gets old. The cinematics themselves are also absolutely wonderful to watch. They are very Pixar-esque, and I wouldn't mind watching a movie like this. It's not perfect, there are some stiff animations here and there, but overall I would say it's a visual feast for your eyes, definitely. And when it comes to the audio, I will say the music is also absolutely fantastic. It all feels extremely tranquil and beautiful to listen to. They managed to do this really cool thing. Whenever you enter a dark and dead area, you will notice the music slowly fade away. Sadly, the voice acting does have some room for improvement. While it's not terrible by any means, it also isn't great. And I think it's only highlighted more so in this case because the game looks absolutely beautiful. It's oftentimes hard to remember that this really is an indie game in the grand scheme of things. All in all though, Kenna Bridge of Spirits is a really fun old school traditional platform action adventure, and if you're into that sort of thing, you should absolutely check this one out. I know it gave me a hit of nostalgia and memories of older games I used to play back in the day. I know I didn't really talk much about the story, but that's because I really think it's better left experienced than talked about. But just to wash away any worries, I do really like the storyline. I found it very meaningful and also a beautiful tale. My biggest complaint about the game is that it really doesn't do anything to stand out, but it doesn't really need to. It's the type of game that you'll play and probably feel like you've played something like this before, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I really can't wait to see what the studio behind the game, Ember Lab, achieves next. This for a first showing is extremely strong. As for the game running on GeForce Now, it works wonderfully. I had everything cranked up to ultra and all the gameplay you're seeing in the background was captured off a GeForce Now instance. If you're interested in streaming the game itself, right now it's only available through GFN and the game you can pick up on the Epic Game Store. If you have any remaining questions or concerns about the game, leave them down in the comment section below and I'll answer what I can. Now, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. As always, thank you for watching the video. This has been The Virtual Cloud, giving you the latest and greatest on everything cloud gaming and VR related, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.